Alrighty, very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. If you're from the Eastern European region, especially Greece, Cyprus, and Malta, very good day to you all if you're from the rest of the world. And for people from India, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Anand Palanisamy. I have been with the team Manage Engine for 16 years and I have sailed with different portfolios of Manage Engine. I have been known as Andy, which means I've been with Manage Engine for all these years, known as Andy, and I have an experience with almost all the portfolios that we have at Manage Engine. Just to give you a hint, okay, before even going ahead, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to know if you are all able to see my screen. I am at the slide deck where you can see the role of AI in cybersecurity. uh, I would request you all to please confirm in the chat window if you're all able to see the slide deck, and also tell me if you're all able to hear me well. I got a few yes and confirmations before even I have completed. Thank you very much for all the responses. Great, great. Very attentive. Thank you so much. All right. Wonderful, wonderful. So, I'm not going to wait for any more confirmation. Thank you. You've been very awesome crowd. Okay. I also, ladies and gentlemen, would like to emphasize something else about this webinar. So we have a Q&A section available in this webinar. So please make use of it for posting any technical questions about this product. I mean, about the webinar or about the solutions that I'm going to talk about, or in fact, you can post me any questions that you have in your mind pertaining to this webinar. Okay. You can also use the chat window. So what I would like to tell you is I have a team working behind and they are going to respond to you on time, right? So have it as an assurance that we will be answering to all the questions. With that said, I also wanted to request you all to please be interactive. I'm going to ask a few questions and I would like to get some answers as well. So thank you so much once again. And let me just go dive into the session real quick. Right. So the topic that we're going to discuss is the role of AI in the cybersecurity. So we will be discussing a lot about the uh, challenges that you are going to face with the AI. I mean, the other face of the AI, because AI has two faces. It depends upon on which hands the AI is in. If the AI is in the good hand, that's absolutely good. If the AI is in the bad hand, what are the consequences that we're going to face? We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then the opportunities that you have in the AI cyberspace, also the trends. With that said, this is going to be the agenda for the today's session. So we're going to talk a few statistics about why the traditional approach is no longer enough, especially for the popularity in the cyber criminal activities that is happening across the globe. So we will talk a lot about the cyber threat landscape, where we are right now, where are we heading, and what's going to be the future as well. And then we're going to deep dive into some statistics and some attacks which can do with respect to the due to the AI. And also we will be discussing about the AI driven difference between the AI driven and the rule based systems, and why do you need a SOAR capability in the SOC operations. And we will be deep dive into the solutions that we as a vendor offering in the cybersecurity arena. So, to begin with, the traditional security approaches. When I say traditional security approaches, I'm sure most of you, or I would say at least 99% of you all would have these kind of security approaches like firewalls, antivirus, or any perimeter-based defenses. And let me tell you, why are they no longer enough in today's cybersecurity landscape? Because of the increase in sophistications that the bad actor can get it in the internet or with the help of any AI tools. It's going to be very easy for them to get a script, to build something they wanted to do upon the script, and they can just deploy it in the internet. They're going to gain access to any of the credentials. Not all of them, but there are some weak passwords exist on the cloud applications where they can gain access to it. They can do anything. Let me just go explain these particular attacks so that you will have a great context between what I said a little earlier and the AI. First of all, we're going to talk about the credential stuffing. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a type of an cyber attack. Now, this can be a very potential attack that everybody needs to be aware of, because this is where the attackers are going to use the previously breached username and password, no matter what services from they are going to get it, and they are going to try and gain access to any user account on the other platform. So this attack exploits the common user habit of reusing the passwords across multiple sites. So the bottom line of this particular attack is going to be, if a user is going to have same credential on multiple platforms. Let's say you log into the Gmail with a particular credential and you're using the same credential on any third-party applications, Zoom for that matter. Okay, please don't blame me for mentioning the platform that we are in right now, because I have a stats to show you on how the Zoom has compromised in the past. Okay, so coming back to this attack, uh, so a user having same credentials on multiple platform, see what's going to happen here. The attacker is going to hold off the leaked stolen credential, and the attacker is going to use botnets for spraying the credentials across different applications. And if at all you are using the same credentials on any of these applications where the credentials were sprayed, you are going to be the victim of it. That's the bottom line of the credential stuffing. So Zoom itself is one of the victim of this particular attack. As you can see right here, over 500,000 Zoom account credentials were found for sale on the dark web. So to be more precise about this particular incident, this wasn't due to the breach of Zoom itself. Okay, so hope you all can understand the context right here. It's not just about the Zoom, it's all about the end users who are having the credentials to log into the Zoom, and that's being used by the other platforms as well. Okay, so the consequence right here, Zoom's privacy concern has been at its peak of remote. I mean, I would say the consequence of this particular attack is the reputation. People lost faith in Zoom. Of course, Zoom is still very popular, but that's a bad incident have happened that has spoiled their name, right? What is the possible solution right here, ladies and gentlemen? I'm telling this as a example of this particular attack, credential stuffing. Why? It's because um, the today's cyber attack can be so dynamic and distributed as well. So the one particular attack that I've been talking about, the credential stuffing, is a typical example of a dynamic attack, right? Now, let's talk about the distributed attack. Okay. So the best example for the distributed attack is LOTL, living off the land. Now, this is an attack is when the cyber criminals uses legitimate pre-installed tools and process already available in the target system to carry out malicious activity instead of deploying a new malware, which means they are not going to deploy any malicious script on the computer itself. It could be the file server, it could be the domain controller, or any server that you have. They are not going to deploy any a script or an application with exe as such. So what they're doing instead is they're going to leverage the existing tools that you have on the same computer in order to perform some attack. So um, eventually, this is going to give the SOC analyst a very hard time in terms of detecting an attack, right? Because tools like PowerShell, WMI, for that matter, even the command prompt, are some of the trusted components of the operating system by itself. Therefore, it's going to be really, really difficult for the SOC administrators to detect or to understand what has happened. So basically, LOLT attacks are labeled as dynamic because they adapt in real time to the environment, they infiltrate and do not follow any fixed pattern or a payload. So that's how the dynamic attack is going to happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I think uh, I have made a small mistake. Now, the attack that we have seen earlier, credential stuffing, is a typical example of a distributed attack. Now, what you're looking at here, LOTL, is a typical example of the dynamic attack. So sorry about that. Okay, so coming to the context of the living off the land attack, the attacker uses the built-in systems, as I have mentioned. It could be the command prompt, PowerShell, WMI, or PSEXE instead of malware, right? So what is the behavior here? No malware signature to detect. It's only abnormal usage pattern. So how are we going to detect this as an attack? You need to have a continuous monitoring on the servers if at all any of the existing Microsoft component like the command prompt or the PowerShell is being used abnormally. So see where are we heading towards right now, right? You never imagine that something can go wrong with the internal components that Microsoft or the operating system itself offers. Okay, so why do you consider this as a dynamic attack? It's because it completely bypasses the traditional antivirus and relies on the legitimate tool. Because the bad actors are not going to deploy any script. They're not going to install anything. If they are going to do it, a tool like AD Audit Plus is going to immediately flash the administrator with right prompt. They are not doing it with the traditional way. Now, these are all the typical examples, ladies and gentlemen. Attacks like LOTL or the previous attack that we had discussed, credential stuffings, are no longer sophisticated traditional tools are going to help you in detecting it, right? So we have seen two different attacks. Okay, now let's see the evolving cyber threats in the landscape. Okay, so where are the cyber threats are going ahead? It's undoubtedly it's going to be more sophisticated with the AI in place, automation in place, and even advanced evasion techniques in place. Okay. And they are going to be more and more persistent because the threat actors are going to wait within the network hours or days, weeks or months in order to gain access. I'm going to give you a typical example of what has happened in the country where I have come from. Please give me a few seconds. Let me talk about the next point here. The cyber threats are going to be more and more distributed and they are more targeted. When I say targets, ladies and gentlemen, it's no longer a device. It's no longer a particular firewall. It's no longer the antivirus. It's no longer uh, the endpoints, right? It's no longer targeting a particular device. So the trend of the bad actors are going towards the accounts, CEO, CFO, CIO, CTO, right? So they're just going to directly target on the people so that they can gain access to it, and they're going to get something bigger that you cannot even imagine. Okay. Now, if you could look at this slide so closer, this is an attack happened in India, and that too from a very leading bank. Now, what has happened here? User's computer got compromised because of a phishing email. Okay, so the email had a malicious script on it. Unknowingly, the user clicked that particular link and his computer, I mean, the user's own computer got compromised. Then what has happened? That particular attacker was patiently waiting on his computer in order to gain access to the server that they have. So, uh, 9 days later, the compromised workstation got connected to the network. From there, the user, the legitimate user, had to access to the server. Typically, that's the domain controller. And from that server, uh, the bad actor got an access to it, and he was patiently waiting on that computer that is on the domain controller in order to gain access on the Active Directory users and computers. So through some backdoor, the bad actor got access to the Active Directory. He himself has elevated his permission by adding himself to a security group. After that, he has access to the sensitive files and folders. That's when the exploitation have happened, right? So this is a typical example of how the traditional attack can happen, and it really happened way back, I think, a decades ago in a leading bank in India. Okay. Now imagine how the bad actor has been moved from device to devices. Okay. So in order to send the phishing email, he should have compromised the external firewall, right? The exchange filters. After that, he got an access to the local computer of the legitimate user. From there, he got an access to the server. From the server, he got an access to the sensitive files and folders. From there, the exploitation have happened. I tell you what has happened, ladies and gentlemen. The user has stolen the ntds.dit, which is nothing but the database of the domain controllers, from where he got the password of all the users that you had in the Active Directory users and computers, and eventually they were threatened, right? So this is the a typical attack which has happened. And coming to the AI, okay, this particular attack, what I have just explained to you, is when not even the AI was introduced, or the AI was in the very beginning stage. Now, let me talk about the bad face of the AI, the generative AI. The generative AI is going to make the situation a lot more worse because the bad actors can no longer uh, spend much of time in writing a code, writing a script, or spend much of time in exploring the information about the customer where they are going to target. Okay, so basically, the generative AI is the use of artificial intelligence system, particularly those based on the generative model, to enhance and improve various aspects of the cybersecurity. Well, that's a good point. But in the context of the cybersecurity, generative AI can be used for both defensive and the offensive purposes as well. Now, I have three different attacks I'm going to talk about. Okay. First thing is okay, I think I have it on a different order, but it's okay, never mind. Let me talk about the data poisoning. You all know what is user behavior analytics, right? User behavior analytics is nothing but that's going to be a system. Okay, the system will be trained by some information that you're going to feed in. What kind of information? Typically the logs. Logs taken from all the user's workstation and the user himself. Okay, so basically it's the user and the asset the user is associated with, or the user and all the components where the user is associated with. For example, it could be the Active Directory, it could be the files and folders, it could be a server where he does his all of his activities periodically. So that's collaterally you call it as the user's environment. Okay. Now, what the UEBA is going to do is it's going to collect the data from all of these systems. Let's refer it as a system. Okay. And it will monitor the behavior of that user. For example, what time he logs in and what time he logs off from the computer. And in between the time, what are all the actions the user is going to take, right? Now, based on which the system will set a baseline. And anything that goes beyond the baseline will be considered as an anomaly. That is what you call it as a user behavior analytics. If you could look at the example right here, what the data poisoning is going to do for you is going to feed some wrong information to that system. And how much amount of wrong information? It does not have to be 20%. It does not have to be 50%. It does not have to be 80%. 0.001% of bad data injected to the trained system that you already have is going to cause the result anomalous. See how dangerous it is. This is what you call it as a data poisoning. Then comes an attack, which is a very well-known attack. You call it as data extraction. Now, you could see two different things right here. One is organization's database, other one is attacker's database. Now, the organization's database has all of these essential information that you're going to store. That includes the sensitive files and folders. It could be information about your customers, information about the intellectual data, it could be Active Directory as well, where you have the information about all the users that you have, how many privileged users are there, plenty of information, very, very sensitive information. Along with that, you do have the PII data. So when I say data, everything that you store in the organization, you call it as data. Okay. Now, what the attacker is going to do, the attacker is not going to steal these information with the traditional hacking mechanism. The attacker is going to get these information a bit by bit. It's not going to be a script. It's not going to be a PowerShell command. He is going to use it where if he is going to use any of these traditional tools, a tool like AD Audit Plus or any SIM solution will immediately flag it as an alert and you all will come to know. But rather, the attacker is going to get these information as small as possible, bit by bit. So eventually, all these information that you see in the organization database can move to the attacker's database. It might take some time, but the point is that uh, during this kind of data extraction, none of your cybersecurity tool is going to tell you that this is something has happened. These are all the information have been transferred from the organization DB to the attacker's DB. That is what this attack is going to cost you, data extraction. Now, the third one is evasion attack is a lot more interesting, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all know about the driverless car. I like it personally. I personally have drive Tesla when I was in Australia, the driverless mode. It was fantastic. Okay. Now coming to the context here. Um, okay, I shouldn't have mentioned the name as Tesla. Let's refer it as a driverless car. Now, the bad actor is not going to spend much of the time on breaking the security system of such cars, but rather he is going to pass some malicious command from an external source. What is the external source? As you can see on my slide, it's the traffic light. Okay. Um, now, what is the bottom line of this attack? There is a pattern, correct? Every car needs to obey the traffic light, correct? Which means if the traffic light is red in color, the car is supposed to stop. Understanding this as a pattern, the traffic light, you can inject some malicious command. So rather than stopping at the traffic light when it is red in color, the car is going to take the speed of 4x and it's going to pass through the traffic. So, what is the consequence here? It is going to cost some life, correct? That is what the evasion attack is all about. Now, how is this attack going to happen? It's going to happen with the help of the pattern. Understanding the pattern, you are passing the malicious script and you are going to get succeeded in this aspect. Okay. So we have seen all these kinds of attacks. Now let's talk about the detection. Let's talk about the good face of the artificial intelligence. So basically, AI-driven attack detection. Okay, so basically, ladies and gentlemen, machine learning is a part of the AI framework, right? So this is where we have to focus on. So AI-driven attack detection uses the machine learning and behavior analytics to identify threats by recognizing patterns, anomalies, and deviations from the normal activity, often in the real time. So, a typical example of the AI-driven attack detection, I would say user entity behavior analytics. It's not just the user and also the entity the user is associated with. Together, you form the machine learning baseline, and anything that goes beyond the baseline, it's going to be detecting it as an attack. So we have seen an attack that is going to cause the result as anomaly little earlier. That is what you called as a data poisoning. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where the data security comes into the picture. How are you going to protect your logs? How are you going to protect the proof, right? So it can also get applied in the detection technique. I will explain you a little earlier, but the context is the AI-driven attack detection is nothing but the supervised machine learning technique using which you can build a system, which is what you call it as user behavior analytics. Now here, what is the AI is going to contribute in these kind of detections? So instead of relying on the static signatures or the predefined rules, I mean the supervised ML, is going to analyze the data from the users, devices, and the networks to detect suspicious behavior, even when the threat is new or unknown. Okay, so it is not just going to bound with one particular entity, that is the user himself. It's going to get the information from all the sources where the user is associated with. For example, the cloud applications or every single dark websites or the blocklisted IP address, the user credential have been leaked. Okay, then all the servers the user is associated with, all the workstations, all the applications, all the networking devices, so on and so forth. So the supervised ML is going to read the data from all of these sources, correlate it, and it sets the baseline. Then anything that goes beyond the baseline, you will consider that as an anomaly. Uh, that's the framework behind the AI-driven attack detection. So basically, it's going to use the baseline learning on with the help of the AI. So the AI observes and learns what is considered normal behavior of user, system, and the applications. Now, when the anomaly detection is going to happen, when something deviates from the baseline, just like I have explained you a little earlier, like, the typical example is going to be uh, the user logging in one particular location. For example, the user is accessing the Microsoft 365 from your own territory, but all of a sudden the logging is happening in a different country or two different countries. That is something you have to trigger it as an alert. Now, I would say another typical example for the insider's threat. An administrator, logs in at 8 in the morning, leaves at 4 in the evening. In between time, the user performs some actions like two or three password, a few account unlocks, and one user creation. Okay. Now imagine this is going to be the pattern how the user is working regularly. The baseline will be set based on all of these actions. Now, all of a sudden, the same administrator is going to take some multiple actions. For example, 200 password reset on the same day. That is absolutely considered to be as a abnormal behavior, right? This is how the UEBA is going to detect the anomalies. Okay. Then, in order to detect all of these anomalies, what is something that you need to have? You need to have the correlation. As I have explained to you, correlation should be very contextual, which means all the entities the user is associated with, the system needs to collect the data, and it should basically it should create all the patterns, and it should help you in detecting any attacks or any bigger incidents like a privilege escalation or a lateral movement. That is what the correlation is going to offer for you. Then perfect AI based UEBA should be improved continuously. Yes, it is going to do that. It's because periodically it's going to get the logs right. So it will initially, like for a week's time, until in order to train the baseline, it may not, the results may not be accurate, but down the line, periodically after getting the information from all of the log sources, there will be a continuous improvement. So the system evolves with more data and feedback, improving the detection accuracy over the time. Now, here is the difference. Okay, so here is the difference between the AI-driven system, that is the supervised ML, versus the rule-based system. So the core principle in the AI-driven system is learn the data and adapt through the machine learning. So in today's world, it's going to be the supervised machine learning. That is what even Manage Engines Log 360 is going to work. The rule-based system, predominantly it operates using the predefined if-then rules. That is the static rules. It's not going to change dynamically based on the information or based on the actions or incidents that is happening across your region. On the aspect of flexibility, the AI-driven system is highly adaptive to new patterns and unknown threats. Okay. Now, the typical example that I can talk about here is, let's talk about the credential leak. A user's credential has been leaked in the dark website. Okay, it could be the leak of the username, the password, or the email address, or any sensitive information about that user of your organization has been leaked, right? So you have to identify that in terms of in terms of the system being integrated with all kinds of threat source, and you need to take some actions as well, because you never know what website is currently classified as a dark website because that is something you have to pull the data from the leading threat sources. Okay. Whereas if you could look at the rule-based system, it's just a rule, and the rule is going to be rigid, and it cannot handle the scenarios, uh, about it. It cannot have any information about the dark website dynamically updated to the predefined rules. So that's the flexibility. So threat detects unknown, emerging, or fileless attack. So any kind of attack that's happening in your organization, uh, the AI-driven system is going to detect it, and this rule-based, I mean, the traditional rule-based system is going to detect it if only it matches the if and then rules that you have configured within the system. So the learning capability is something that the AI-driven system is going to continuously improve. And on the other side, there is no room for learning anything within the system if it is a rule-based system. So the most important aspect here is that the false positive can get decreased tremendously because we are continuously feeding the system with some right information. On the other side, the rule-based system, no, there is no room for it. So that's something that I can talk about in the differences. So you can see right here a typical example for the UEBA module. You can see that there are three different ways for identifying the anomaly. So what you're looking at right here is an example of how the UEBA is going to detect an anomaly. You can see that there are three different things. One is time-based, count-based, and pattern-based. So what is the time-based? Regularly, the user logs in at 9 o'clock and he leaves at 5 in the evening. And all of a sudden, the user is logging in the non-business hours like 12 o'clock in the midnight or 1 or 2 o'clock in the midnight. So that's going to be the time-based anomaly. So that has to be flagged as anomaly right here. Then comes the count-based. So regularly, the user performs actions like 2 or 3 password reset, but all of a sudden, the user is doing like 50 or 100 password reset. That's what you call it as a count-based anomaly. And then the pattern-based anomaly. If at all the sequence of pattern has been changed all of a sudden, then that needs to be considered as an anomaly as well. Now, what you're looking at here is the manage engines UEBA capability, where you have two different things right here. One is you can just live with the predefined configurations based on the three different actions: time based, count based, or the pattern based. If at all you wanted to change the predefined patterns, the rules, it is absolutely possible. So the best part here is you have liberty to customize all of these configurations, the predefined configurations that you have within our application. In that way, the tool can be flexible for any environment. That's the best part here. Now, talking about the SIM, ladies and gentlemen, uh, if you ask me whether the SIM is going to die, absolutely no. The SIM can never die. The sim can stay alive as long as you have the SOC, as long as you have the technical brain about stealing the information in the organization. So, for how many years these attackers are going to evolve, for all these years, the traditional sim is going to live. Okay. Now, coming to the factor, you may have a security solution. You may have a SIM solution, but please do not call your system as a SIM unless you have all of these basics. For example, the first thing is log collection. Any SIM solution for that matter needs to collect logs from every single log source that you have. It could be your firewall, it could be the networking devices, it could be the Linux devices, it could be the Windows infrastructure, it could be the file servers, it could even be cloud applications. So a perfect SIM solution needs to collect data from the heterogeneous network. Okay, so if you're from the hospital industry, then you need to support the OT devices. You may have IoT devices as well. Your SIM needs to collect the logs. So it's not just the log aggregation. It has to process the log, give you as a meaningful information. That is when you need to have an ability to modify the predefined parser that comes with the application. Now, Manage Engines Log 360 offers this. We have the ability for collecting logs from every single log sources, OT devices or IoT devices. It doesn't matter. The best part is for some specially made in-house devices, what do we have in our application is the tool helps you in customizing the parser. You can build your own parser based on which the tool will collect the data, right? That's number one. Number two, you need to have an effective correlation mechanism. Now, what is this correlation? As I said earlier, you need to have the ability for collecting logs from different sources, and there must be a rule that you will have to define within your system. So, if a sequence of action happens from multiple devices, the rule needs to identify that, and it should give you the precise information about the attack that has happened, right? So if you could follow the sequence of the ransomware attack, which happened in the bank that I had explained you a little earlier, the intruder has traveled from the firewall to the local computer. From there, the Active Directory domain controller. From there, eventually the file system got compromised. Okay, so you will have to have the ability either creating your own rules or building some system uh, within the SIEM system that you need to have the ability to detect these attacks. So Log 360 has these features by default. We have inbuilt correlations, and you can build your own correlations as well. Okay. The third important thing is that compliance. No matter what you have, be prepared for sending information to your auditors. Otherwise, you will be in a grave danger. Okay, so what we have in Log 360, we have predefined compliance report that supports uh, a GDPR, NIST 2, and DORA is something that we are working upon. In a couple of months or maximum in 3 months timeline, you should have these features included in our application. But currently, we have some predefined compliance report. On top of it, you can build your own compliance reports as well, right? And the best part is UEBA module, which is pretty much built based on the supervised ML, and that's going to give you very precise detection about any anomaly that happens within your organization. Okay, so to talk something about the SIM, I should have explained you a little earlier. A SIM has a continuous growth in terms of the technologies. Okay, so uh, it's an ever, I mean, a SIM will sustain in the context of ever-growing cyber threats. So as hacking, ransomware, insider threats, and the cyber incidents happening across the globe is increasing tremendously, companies needed centralized monitoring to to stay safe. So SIM evolved from basic log collector to advanced threat detection engines. It is not just going to stop till the threat detection engines. There is a need for the SOAR capability. So what is a SOAR? The SOAR is a kind of a workflow orchestration that will come into the picture if at all attack is detected. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you on that part. Just give me a quick moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to please take a look at this particular slide deck where how did we evolve, or as a vendor, how Manage Engine is going to complement you in terms of technologies. Okay, so basically on the very bottom, you could see that you have identities, you have endpoints, you have a network, data, applications, and you may have the cloud infrastructure as well. Okay, and that's going to bring events, logs, metrics, telemetry information about your assets, and the traces. Okay, now on top of it, the technology comes into the picture. The technology is like identity security, endpoint security, network security, data security, and the cloud security. Okay, these are all the essential layer that every single company needs to focus on. Now, based on this, these technologies are going to get evolved. Technologies like SIEM, UEBA, ITDR, Intelligent Threat Detection and Response, SOAR, CASB, so on and so forth. Now, what are we going to do in order to complement these technologies is a unified security platform within our manage engine. And what is that platform are going to do? It's going to orchestrate. We are going to include the AI. We are going to be available in the marketplace, and we are going to give you a unified console which will have the unified analytics information. So what is going to be the outcome? It's going to be the cyber resilience, security posture, where we will give you a crystal clear information about your organization. Let's say, for example, Active Directory. What are all the configurations that you have done in the Active Directory? What are all the uh, misconfigurations that you have? What are all the risks that you have in Active Directory based on the information taken? And it's going to give you the security posture. We do have the threat hunting. Currently, our Log 360 is integrated with a few threat sources, but down the line, we are going to include a lot more threat sources, close to 6 or 7 threat sources, including the virus total constellar. And then it's going to give you the threat information as precise as possible. Based on all of these technologies, ladies and gentlemen, we will help you to sustain in your business because we are periodically going to give you information about what's going on in your organization. For example, the SOX report or the compliance report, what you needed, any kind of attack that happens in the organization that will be quickly identified. And we do have the SOAR capability, which is going to take some actions that will help you in preventing that action spreading across the other network, right? So we have plenty of other things. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's the time to go ahead and explain you what do we have here in terms of the SIM. Okay, so what is the tool we have? We have a tool called Log 360. Now, Log 360 has multiple component. What you're looking at right here is the event log analyzer, and we do have something called as AD Audit Plus. Now, these two products can be integrated into one UI, which is the Log 360. So if you ask me, I have AD Audit Plus. Can I call myself as a SIM solution? Absolutely no. You need, because AD Audit Plus is going to give you the information taken from your Windows infrastructure. For example, domain controller, your file server, your member servers, possibly from the Cloud Active Directory as well. But you will not get the information taken from the networking devices, applications, your vulnerability scanners, so on and so forth. That is why you need to have the event log analyzer. Now, both together forms the log 360. Now, let me talk about the unique features that we have in our event log analyzer. First thing is the log collection. If you could see this right here, these are all the sources from where event log analyzer can collect the data, right? And if you ask me, hey, I have a OT device, can you help me to configure that device in your event log analyzer? Absolutely, yes. You can very well configure it as a custom device within the product, and you just have to go to the report section and build your own report. What are all the information that you wanted to see in the reporting section pertaining to that particular device? You can build it right here depending upon the logs that are taken from that particular device. Okay, so you can create a report by adding all of these criterias, adding these conditions so that you will have your own report that you can see at any point of time, right? So log collection from heterogeneous uh, sources is there, reporting is there, customization in the report is there, then comes the compliance part. So we have a very good platform for offering almost all the compliances that are needed of an R. Except for the DORA and the NIS2, which is very essential in the European region, we have everything else, including the GDPR, GLBA, ISO, plenty of compliance reports are available by default. Now, on top of this, you can go and build your own compliance report. All you have to do is select the appropriate report that you wanted to see in your compliance section. Then you can simply schedule it so the tool can email the information to you. So that is something we have it right here. So compliance checkbox has been checked. Then comes the search. The search that you're looking at here is one of the unique functionality of Manage Engines Log 360. Okay, so we use a different technique uh, uh, to search for any information. Okay, basically the tool has two different databases. One, you call it as Elasticsearch. That is where the data will be stored. Number two, it uses PG-SQL. That is where all kinds of configurations are stored. Now, you have an option for selecting the retention period, how long the information should be available in the product. After that, where do you want the logs to be stored? Okay, so that is something you can define it right here. And after that, the tool will move the information to the archived folder. Okay, so you can choose the date range and you can see the sources where that needs to be archived. So apart from this, once the data is moved to the archive, if you want to see the historical data, you can directly go fetch the data from the search. Okay, we use indexing technique. Therefore, the retrieval of information is going to be faster and quicker. That is what the search capability is. Then comes the correlation. The tool has a very efficient correlation. You could see almost all the attacks are available here by default, and you do have an option for either modifying the existing correlation rule, or you can go and create your own correlation rules. It's going to be very simple and straightforward. You don't have to write a script, no code, nothing is required. All you have to do is drag and drop the uh, action from the left hand side, I mean the events from the left hand side, the tool will automatically build the correlation rule and you can see it right here. This is the present condition, ladies and gentlemen. We are working on close to 2,000 more correlation rules. It will be available in a couple of months time frame. Please stay tuned. This is what you have in the correlation. Now that we have reports, we have correlation, we have compliance, there is an assurance that the tool is going to detect any kind of anomaly. What are you going to do with those anomalies? We have an option for creating that as an alert. So you can notify the administrator if something has gone wrong. So what we have here is you have an option for creating your own alert profile. These alert profiles are absolutely customizable. You can build the alert profile all by yourself, or you can use the machine learning technique right here. This will avoid any false positive. If I go to the advanced configuration, you do have something called as a smart threshold. So based on the machine learning technique, the tool will automatically understand the threshold and it will set all by itself. Okay, until now, we talked about the basic functionalities. Now, what am I going to show here is we have the workflow. So, if an incident has happened, the tool can do two things. One, the tool can uh, send an email alert. Number two, the tool can create a ticket in your ticketing tool. Number three, the tool can do all of these actions. You can see that there are plenty of actions that are available right here. If you're not satisfied with the predefined actions, you can go and create your own workflow. Here, you can see the magic. It's a very simple user interface where you are just going to drag and drop the action that you want the tool to take. See, I have selected three different actions and the tool will take all of these actions. It'll orchestrate it right here. So basically the tool is going to do multiple things. One, if a attack has happened, the tool will detect it. You can see it in the report. You can create that as a ticket in your ticketing software. On top of it, the SOAR capability that you're looking at here comes into the picture where the tool will take these sequence of actions. You do have integration with Endpoint Central. If you want the vulnerable computer to be deployed with the right patch, this is going to do for you. You can also integrate AD Manager Plus for taking any Active Directory related actions. Ladies and gentlemen, so this is what we have in the event log analyzer. We do have the AD Audit Plus as well, predominantly for Active Directory auditing. And we also have AD Manager Plus, where the tool can give you some essential information about the Active Directory. It can also give you the reputation score as well. So I'm just going to quickly show that to you, and I will wind up this session. Thank you so much for all your time. This is what the AD Manager Plus is all about. And within AD Manager Plus, you can see that in the dashboard, I have this option for running the risk score within the product. So this gets the information from Active Directory users and computers and is going to give you uh, all the risk exposure that's taken from your infrastructure. I want you to please take a look at it, try it. If you have questions, feel free to connect with me at any point of time. Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to show my email address and my LinkedIn account right here. So feel free to connect with me for any other assistance. I'm sorry, I think I have a bit of a trouble in showing this. I'm not sure. Okay. Oh, well, not this one. I'm sorry. I should have taken you towards the end of the presentation. Okay, here you go. So this is my email address, anant.p@manageengine.com, and that's my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to connect with me at any point of time for any assistance that you would need it about the products that we had discussed. I'm really sorry. I haven't paid attention to your questions, but I'm sure my dear friend, Mr. Vamsi, would have answered all of your questions. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, team, for helping all of our customers. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I thank every one of you for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you all. And very soon you will be receiving an email with some feedback form by my partner from the channel IT, and also a few emails from my events team. So once again, I wish you all a very good luck. Thank you so much, and you all have a very wonderful day. Bye-bye.